going.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Lydia, we're live on YouTube.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Good evening, councillors. Good evening, members of the public who may be watching us from near or afar. Welcome to this meeting of the Waverley Borough Council Executive. The first item on the agenda is the minutes of our last meeting held on the 6th of October. Are there any errors of fact, or am I at liberty to sign them with your approval? Could you please unmute and agree?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much, everybody. Fiona, I don't believe there are any declarations of interest in advance. Does anybody have any declarations of interest they wish to make at the meeting now? Thank you very much. That is none declared. Item 4 is questions from members of the public. And just to confirm, Fiona, I don't believe there are any.
That's correct, Leader.
Thank you very much. Questions from members of the council. I understand we have a question from Councillor David Beeman.
That's correct.
Councillor Beeman, the floor is yours.
Okay, right. It's a short question. Does Waverley Borough Council, like several other local authorities, including a number of Conservative controlled councils like Kensington and Chelsea, have any intention to provide free school meal vouchers over the Christmas and New Year holiday period to children who are entitled to receive free school meals during term time? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beeman, and welcome back.
Briefly.
Yes, this is a subject which we're all concerned about, and I understand the Local Resilience Forum has been working over half term to provide meals for children over that period. I have been in contact with the County Council and they have assured me that they will be planning in earnest with school leaders and local resilience partners, as well as with us, to see what sustainable arrangements can be made over Christmas to see that no child goes hungry. What form this will take, we are not yet sure, but they will be working with the schools who know the children best to find out how this can be done. Therefore, we haven't made any firm arrangements yet, but we are committed to do something to see that children are not going hungry over this particular period. But I'm sorry that until I have further details from the county and from the Local Resilience Forum, I cannot give you a totally definite answer to your question, but it is very high on our priority and in our minds. I know it's not totally the answer you would have liked to have heard, but I hope at least it will give you some comfort and it will focus minds around us that this is a problem that needs dealing with.
I'm pleased to hear it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Beeman. Moving on to item 6, leaders and portfolio holders announcements. As you can imagine, COVID-19 and the dramatic change in government arrangements and response has been fairly high on the agenda. We have had a number of webinars with the ministers who are putting a little flesh on basically what was announced by the Prime Minister. Still many details to come. But this is a path which unfortunately we have trodden before earlier in the year. We are putting all our contacting in place. As most people will realise, those who used to shield last time will not have to shield this time, but will be getting specific letters from the government health departments, and we will be in a position to contact all vulnerable people. In that they are allowed a little bit more freedom this time, we are hoping that we will not have so much to look after them, but our facilities will be available. Homelessness, again, is another problem that we will have to deal with over this period, and we dealt with it well last time, and I see no reason why we can't this one. For the businesses, as you are hopefully aware, the government has announced a number of new business grants, which, although not solving everybody's problem, we hope will go some way towards alleviating it. We may or may not like or agree with the way the government is handling this, but what is clear is that large groups of people is what is the biggest driver for this virus passing from person to person. So whatever people's views are, I would urge them to take note of the government guidelines and to be extremely careful in where they go, who they meet with, and do please observe the spacing and the mask wearing that is now compulsory in public places. I would add just a short thing, not on COVID, but on the unitary problem, which has dogged us for some time. This clearly now is very much in abeyance, with Surrey no longer being invited to take a position immediately, but work is continuing with KPMG to finalize a report on a slightly different vein for the boroughs and districts to see how we can best cooperate. And cooperation obviously is more likely with our nearest neighbours, and we will be looking at what we can do in the meantime to perhaps give a bit of an example to other people. Not much more to report from me, so I will move on and ask Councillor Merriweather if he would like to speak.
Thank you, Leader. Obviously, the most immediate concern is the financial impact of the second lockdown. Between the benefit that we will get from the government's lost income grant and the additional losses and costs that will incur as a result of the second lockdown, as provided it is only for a short period, it is likely that the financial consequences will stay net within the boundaries of the contingency revised budget that we set back in August. But that's still to be discovered. So back in August, we also committed to review the medium-term financial plan and to report to Council by December, which we still plan to do. Unfortunately, most of the work had been done before the announcement of the second lockdown, so there needs to be some slightly more detailed analysis of that. But nobody will be surprised to hear that, in fact, even before the second lockdown, the consequences of COVID will impact us severely into the next year and subsequent years. The only thing less reliable than COVID at the moment is the government's response to it. So although we'll be presenting to members a review of the medium-term financial plan, it will be as contingent as is necessary, given that the two largest single variables are the virus and the government's response to it, and the amount of support we will get in line with the promises they made at its outset, and their performance against those promises. Thank you.
Apologies, I must remember to unmute. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Leader. Following the sort of discussion, the issues raised about the COVID emergency, what I've got to report is that we've developed a revised version of the Waverley Borough Council's strategic response to the climate emergency. Equally serious, although a little bit further to the future. Our Carbon Neutrality Action Plan 2020 to 2030. That document will now go to Environment Overview and Scrutiny for consideration before coming back to the next meeting of this executive in December. We're also publishing the response to our online public consultation on climate change and Waverley's response to climate change. The analysis is interesting, and I won't go into it now in detail. The key headline is that 93% of respondents believe that climate change is an important issue. 77% saying that it's very important, and 89% of respondents believe that Waverley Borough Council should tackle its own emissions as a priority and lead by example. And I think our Carbon Neutrality Action Plan 2020-2030 points us in the direction as to how we shall do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rosamond.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening all. Hope you're all well. With a second lockdown due this week, Waverley has plans in place for officers to continue to support the community. And as to rough sleepers, as our leader mentioned, further information is being sought from government, but contingency plans are being worked up and have been worked up by Waverley. I'm also aware that ministers are being urged to reintroduce a second Everyone In scheme, housed homeless people during the early months of COVID-19. Following warnings from charities who say people who are forced to sleep in the cold or take refuge in night shelters during this pandemic will not be able to socially distance. In terms of redevelopment work, the redevelopment scheme at Site A, Oxford Ridge, should see the last handover, the last tenant taking over the keys next week. And the Safer Waverley Partnership continues to meet regularly, working to monitor ASB and other community issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor MacLeod.
Thank you, Leader. In terms of planning policy, as I think most councils will know by now, we put in two very good responses, in my view, to the government's recent planning consultations, which DAC has now circulated to all councils and also to the town and parish councils. In terms of what the government's trying to do here, I think we believe that they've got good objectives. They wish to create more housing and they wish to lower house prices, but unfortunately the measures that they're proposing to put in place, in our opinion, won't work. All they're trying to do again is create a lot more planning permissions, many of which won't be built, and as they won't be built, they won't push down house prices in the way the government hopes. The other thing in the planning area is the LPP2 consultation will be starting shortly. We've extended the time from the normal 6 weeks to 8 weeks to allow for the fact that many people, of course, don't have access to internet, and they're going to have to try and look at hard copies in libraries and town and parish council offices or around our offices. There may be some problems to do with this in terms of the COVID restrictions that are coming up, but we'll do our best to overcome them. In terms of Brightwells, the government wishes construction to continue as we understand it. The only problems I possibly foresee is that Crest will continue working on site as they've been doing, but there may be problems in the supply chain which may slow things down a little bit. we'll have a meeting, we're due to have a Bright Worlds board meeting with Crest later this month, so we'll find out from them at that stage, when they've had time to assess things, if there's any potential further delays in the opening of the scheme, which is currently due in July next year. So that's all I want to say at the moment, Leader. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to echo what you said earlier, that those of us who feel a certain impatience with aspects of the government's policy should not transfer that into impatience with the recommendations, because this is something which really transcends politics, and the recommendations, whether we think they came too slowly or not, are vital for the lives and health of ourselves and our friends and our families. So I do detect in my circle some people who feel that the government's credibility is not sufficient to make them feel that the recommendations should be followed, and I totally disagree with that. We need to take this seriously in a non-political way for our own sake. Now, specifically, my department gets requests for a number of public events, typically on Remembrance Day, but also others. And we're trying to be as helpful as we can within the limits of what is defensible on health grounds. And I think we're emphasizing quality rather than quantity here, that a Remembrance Day which has a few people representing us all is actually the right thing to do rather than a crowd. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to confirm that from Thursday, all the leisure centres will be closed in line with government guidance. The one exception being the Edge, which will be open between 9 and 5 for school use only, and this is permitted under the guidance. All staff will be furloughed, apart from a contract manager and one technical operative and a member of staff for the Edge. And the additional cost of the staff member at the Edge will be invoiced to Surrey County Council. Places Leisure are currently working through the immediate financial impact and will produce a recut forecast for the future. And we will be meeting them on Thursday to discuss this information with the further financial implications being available towards the end of November. We are hoping that the furlough scheme being extended will mean that the immediate impact financially against the forecast may be minimal. However, obviously, I will confirm this later on to Executive when the information becomes available later in November. Up until the lockdown, the centres have been performing better than forecasts with some very positive customer feedback. I hope that that's sufficient. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Martin.
Good evening, everyone. I really haven't got anything to report at the moment, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Leader. As portfolio holder for information technology, I'd like to say a few words about another pandemic with a virus, and that the one I'm talking about is cybercrime. Even during this pandemic, organised crime gangs and skilled amateurs continue to bombard sometimes unsuspecting individuals and organisations. The risk of cybercrime is increasing, particularly for those organisations holding large amounts of personal data. Information security is of paramount importance, so it follows that information management is therefore equally essential. Waverley Borough Council belongs to the South East Government Warning, Advisory and Reporting Point to provide early warning and best practice advice around the latest cybersecurity threats. We also subscribe to the services provided by the National Cyber Security Centre that carries out web security checks on all externally facing sites. Recently, we also received funding for technical cyber training, which we will follow up on. I'd like to assure everyone that we continue to provide rigorous and robust defence in order to protect our residents' data from all viruses. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Councillor Follows.
Thank you, Leader. Good evening, everyone. One of the more immediate impacts to the council in regards to the new lockdown is on the workload of the comms team, and the team is receiving a significant number of questions from members of the public, as you'd expect, through all of our media channels, as I know are all of you as members of the council. They're working hard to answer those questions, but in many cases it does require us receiving the appropriate information and detail from the government. So the coronavirus section of the Waverley website will be updated in due course to keep residents informed, and we'll of course keep councillors briefed as much as we can. I echo the comments of the Leader and others in regards to the importance of following government guidelines, however we feel about how we got here. And so I think that's very important that we do that. I'd also just very quickly like to thank Councillor Beeman for his very timely question, and it's certainly my sincere hope that Waverley can be in a position to meaningfully intervene in regards to free school meals during the Christmas holidays, should the government and the county council choose to abrogate their responsibilities to local children. And members of the executive are meeting with officers next week to that end. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor. We will now move on to item 7, which is Oxford Ridge, a request to bring forward budget for Site C and Site F, which is in the competent hands of the portfolio holder, Councillor Anne-Marie Rosamond.
Thank you, Chair. You will find the papers on pages 5 to 10 in your pack. As you're all well aware, the Council has an ongoing programme to deliver new and refurbished affordable housing on its Oxford Ridge estate in Godalming. To date, one site, Site B, has been completed, and another, Site A, is due to complete next week, delivering a total of 53 new homes. Two sites, Site B and C, of 17 and 30 homes respectively, are being progressed through the planning and procurement stages, and proposals for two further sites, Sites E and F, are currently being developed. Site C has outlined planning consent, as an architect has been appointed to develop proposals for Site F. The papers show all the budgets agreed. Due to the successful allocation of new homes for tenants who are living on both sites C and F, the properties within these sites are almost all void, which has enabled the pre-development and demolition works to progress ahead of the expected programme. The purpose of this report is to seek exec approval to bring forward a capital budget from an estimated 21-22 budgets for both sites by rephasing the use of reserves. This will ensure sufficient budget to continue delivery of pre-development, I haven't put my teeth in tonight, demolition and survey work required to inform and secure full planning consent. The recommendation is set out as item 7 in your agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I have one speaker listed on this item, which is Councillor Richard Seaborn. Councillor Seaborn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Leader. I've asked to speak this evening in my capacity as Chair of Housing ONS Committee. Let me start by stating that I'm pleased to see this item coming forward. The Oxford Ridge redevelopment and refurbishment project, which received its initial planning permission in 2014, is an ongoing success story, delivering new homes to a high standard for our residents in Godalming. But accompanying the new homes is a period of disruption for those tenants who have to decant from the houses to be redeveloped. So whenever a phase of the project can be brought forward and accelerated, as we're seeing here, that period of disruption is reduced. So the news that phases C and F can proceed ahead of schedule is good news, and I welcome this evening's request to rephase funding that has already been allocated. The main reason for me wishing to speak this evening is to expand a little on a statement in section 5.5 of your supporting papers, where it says that the design standards will be reviewed in January. I'd like to make it clear to the executive that This is a big and exciting piece of work and will not be limited just to the climate change aspects of Waverley design standards. In addition to looking at the fabric and heating efficiency of new homes to be built, it's intended that the working group will also be looking at officers' proposals in relation to any outstanding requirements arising from the recommendations of the Hackett report into the Grenfell Tower disaster, potential implications of a recent consultation on accessibility standards, potential for improved arrangements for home working, noting that probable changes in working patterns may arise from the COVID pandemic, and any other changes to housing regulations that have occurred since the standards were last reviewed in 2018. The scoping document for this review is due to come to the November Housing ONS meeting. And subject to acceptance, members of the Task and Finish group will then have a bit of homework to do over the Christmas holidays, leading to a series of meetings programmed to beginning in January. So we think these meetings will actually be running through into April, and we have a target of bringing recommendations to executive in June or July. So I just wanted to make this scope and timing clear, but I'm now happy to leave you, hopefully, to approve this evening's recommendation. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor Paul Follows.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Rosman and I are, of course, also the members for Godalming Central and Oxford Ward, so I'm obviously delighted to see this coming forward. I also just wanted to highlight how pleased I am to see item 5.5 in there in regards to how we now loop this into the climate emergency declaration. I think it's pretty clear from our discussions, not just tonight, but in the past, that it's important that we integrate the climate emergency motion into everything the council does. And certainly in regards to housing, particularly affordable housing, there's a very significant opportunity for us to deliver that sort of housing when we do it ourselves, and also to set an example to other developers and builders in the way that they build their houses. It also has the other bonus of managing to provide more affordable housing in terms of the ongoing bills for residents. So I'm extremely pleased to see this in there, and that this is going to come forward in this way. And I also want to thank the housing team, and particularly Louisa on the call and others in the housing team, for taking the strong steer from the administration that we want to see not just these affordable houses built, that we want to try and build them as best we can and in line with our climate emergency. So I really do thank you for helping us try to fulfill that ambition. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I have no more councillors indicating to speak. So, Councillor Rosman, would you like to sum up before I put the recommendation to the group?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I'd like to reiterate the work that Louisa and her team do is incredible. There was an awful lot to learn when I took over this portfolio, and I'm really excited. My mum and dad actually lived in Oxford Ridge when they were first married, so I know the site very well, and I think this is a fantastic opportunity. So I would like to take forward the recommendation that the executive approve the following budgets to be brought forward for sites C and F from the estimated budget from 2021 to 22. Site C, £336,000, and site F, £150,000. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillors. Councillors, may we vote on this using the green or red buttons on your screens?
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, members. I have 10 green ticks, so that's approved.
Thank you, councillors. That is approved. The only other item on the agenda is to exclude the press and public should it be so necessary. It has not proved so necessary. So this meeting of the executive is closed. Thank you. We will now, councillors, move on to sitting as trustees of the Joseph Ewart bequest. This is a bequest that was made to the council some time ago. It has specific limitations. I don't know, Fiona, if you want to remind councillors of what they are, or if we'll just trust them to go ahead.
I think we can trust them to go ahead. I'm not
I thought
sure.
you'd say that. Okay. Very well. Moving to the agenda, item 1 Approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 28th of July. For those present, are there any factual errors, or can I sign them off later? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much.
Agreed.
Apologies for absence. We seem to have a full house, so I guess there are none.
That's correct.
Declarations of interest. I gather none beforehand. Anybody wish to make a declaration of interest at this present time? None showing. Thank you very much. Right, then the Ewart bequest. I think you are going to lead on this again, Councillor Rosamond.
Yes, thank you very much, Jay. They're keeping me busy at the moment, as you can tell. So if you'll find the Ewart report from page 5 in your papers. Waverley Borough Council is the sole trustee of the Joseph Ewart bequest, a registered charity with the objective of providing small bungalow cottages suitable as homes for elderly people with limited financial resources who have lived in the former Farnham Urban District for at least 5 years. The site, owned by the General Fund, was identified as a site that could meet the requirements of the trust. Our pre-application advice was sought on planning in 2015, and executive approval was given in 2016 for the original scoping for 3 bungalows for elderly people by the council acting on behalf of the trust. In 2017, in June, the Charity Commission agreed to an amendment concerning Clause 6.2 of the original will, so that cottages was deleted and replaced with homes or accommodation. In 2019, under Section 105 of the Charities Act, the Charity Commission authorised the purchase of land. A further valuation was later took place to deliver the potential for the authority to ensure there isn't a conflict of interest between the Waverley Trust, the Waverley and the Trust. So the reasons for referral tonight. Initially, 3 2-bedroom cottage-style bungalows were considered. However, following a review of the housing need for the area and the re-examination of the original plans, the site was advertised on the Council Shared South East Services portal to invite an architect to redesign the scheme. The original architect did not bid, and the newly appointed architect advised that additional homes could be delivered on the site, and that potentially the site could accommodate 2 more, making 5 affordable dwellings, as illustrated in Annex 1. The 5 new homes have been designed to Waverley design standards and to be low carbon and energy efficient dwellings that will be suitable for lifetime homes. Details again on page 7. The 5 homes could be built to an enhanced specification in line with the government's preferred uplift in energy efficiency and zero carbon. It will achieve the council's goal of carbon neutrality by 2030 and to accommodate the very needs of applicants over 65 that are registered on the council's housing register. Homes will be built to Waverley Borough Council design standards, and the development team will be delivering the 5 homes on behalf of the trust. The funding for the delivery of the new affordable homes will be met from the Joseph Ewart Trust. This was agreed in 2016, so this now increases it to 5 affordable homes. This will achieve what is deemed to be best value for the trust, while also helping to meet the local housing need within the Farnham area. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Councillor. I have no councillors indicating to speak. So unless you want to say any more, Councillor Rosamond, I will put the recommendation to the committee.
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Okay, it is a 3-part recommendation, councillors. I will read it for the record. It is recommended that the executive, acting as trustee for the Joseph Ewart bequest, firstly, note the contents of the update report. Secondly, agree to the proposed enhanced level of specification to support the council in the delivery of its aim to become a carbon neutral council by 2030 by encouraging carbon reduction and carbon offsetting and promotion of biodiversity and sustainable homes. And finally, 3, agrees an increased budget allocation to deliver 5 new homes at the enhanced rather than the 3 originally proposed. Can I have votes, please, red or green?
That's 10 votes in favour, Chairman, so that's carried.
Thank you very much indeed, Fiona. Thank you, councillors. There is no more business on our agenda, so this meeting is closed. And good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.